Hey fam, hopefully I'll be able to get through this video. If you hear the dogs in the background, we have neighbors that are not exactly, they don't exactly care about noise at night, so they let their dogs go crazy. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was Vlad TV was interviewing Nick Cannon, and we were really lucky that Vlad also interviewed Bill Duke, and I can't express to you how much I really like Bill Duke. The first time I ever saw him was in Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie Predator, but he was also in Commando. And if you youngins don't know what Commando is, I don't know what to tell you, but this gentleman is a world-class actor. He has done a lot in his lifetime, and he carries himself very, very well, and he's very respectable. So this, I actually made a video yesterday on it, because that's how inspired I was. But when I went back to look at it, I was so tired, so sick, it didn't do any justice. And there were so many things that I needed to look up and reference. So without further ado, let's get to this. We'll watch it together.
A lot of people have gotten deals after their Vlad TV interview. You know, once they you hear the story and you see, and you know, sometimes the interview will cause a big social media uproar.
Oh, Vlad.
Yeah, I mean, they do Block 9.
So I know if I fought with a black baby, we gonna have a black ass baby.
So?
I ain't with that.
Why?
Cause I'm already black before.
So?
I can't. No.
He's really cute.
I mean, this is an interesting thing. You know what I mean? Like, so if you have a baby, you don't want your baby to be the same complexion as you?
Mm.
Why?
Because
This is a once in a lifetime thing.
Statistically, they'll have it harder in life.
This a dark ass shade. They be hell nah. I can't.
He's thinking about his child.
He got signed to Cash Money right afterwards.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's a horrible example.
It's a horrible example. It's a horrible example, but
that's not the reason why we should be signing people because of those statements.
But you know something? I bet you that because once that interview came out, it was like on Shade Room and blah 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 and this and that, and he responded, and people were bashing whatever else.
Did he ever say that? Did he change his statement on
No.
that? He still feels the same way?
He said, "Y'all don't know what it's like to be my complexion, so y'all can't tell me what I should, what I've been through and what I should feel."
Wow.
The end. He's stuck by his guns, which is sad. And the reason I put it out was to kind of expose that dialogue.
Right.
Because, you know, it seems like black families have been saying shit like that behind closed doors for a very long time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these have been hush-hush kind of conversations.
Right.
I sort of exposed it to everybody.
I mean, and it was good that you put that out there because it created great dialogue. We got to discuss it. And I pray for the brother. You know what I mean? Like, because I understand the pain that he's talking about. I do know what he's talking about. But again, to use these type of platforms to speak and say things without fully thinking them all the way through, he doesn't know that how much damage he's doing to the sisters in his community by saying that. So
it's also fresh off the block.
Yeah.
This is not someone with media training or has really traveled a lot outside of.
He was speaking his truth. So listen, my God, he was speaking his truth.
Well, because you know I interviewed Bill Duke.
Right.
And he talked about
my first day in kindergarten. I was called nigger and blackie. I remember coming home crying and went to the bathroom and tried to take, they used to have Babo cleanser at those days and wipe the black off of my skin. I thought maybe if I could do that and people would love me more, and then I was gonna drink some bleach in the bathroom. My mother came in just in time, and because I thought the bleach would whiten me. And I was 7 or 8 years old. I didn't know any better.
Wow. That's how serious it was. And he talked about how
colorism is real, man.
And you know.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
And you know,
I want to talk about that.
We start, and I'm like, okay.
Okay, so people in the comments, they went crazy. First of all, they were mad at Nick. Because they're like, Nick, you're not a fine example. Look at the people that you date, blah, blah, blah. Okay. If you guys want to read those comments, you guys know where to go. Go to Vlad TV, Nick Cannon in North Carolina. I was taught not to look whites in the eye or speak to them, part 10. Okay, but what I'm here for is because I don't know an awful lot about colorism. So, I went ahead and looked it up because I wanted to know all there was to know. So here we go. As a child, okay, so then this right here is a deeper than skin review. Why people still think light skin is morally superior to dark skin. Okay, now you guys are looking at me. Pretty blanco, right? I have anemia. I freeze to death. It could be 70 degrees. I'm still freezing. Do I want anemia? No. But if you guys knew my personal story, if you guys go back through my videos and you see my personal story, you guys will know how unfortunate I am and how medically unlucky I am. So this is not wonderful. This is not healthy. I have to take a lot of vitamins to just try to function. So, not that anybody needs to feel sorry for me. Believe me, there's a lot of people who have it worse off than I do, but I'm just letting you guys know. So anyway, here we go. As a child, I recall adults using the phrase, "she was nice but dark," to describe their contemporaries, casually subscribing to the notion still prevalent that light skin is cosmetically and morally superior to dark skin. Clara Amfo, whose heritage is Ghanaian, a culture where dark skin is considered beautiful, tries to get to the heart of the issue in the engaging but overreaching Deeper Than Skin, BBC Radio 1 Extra. It's a tangle of prejudice from all sides. Amfo points the finger at the beauty industry, which uses subtext-heavy buzzwords such as illuminate to sell steroid-heavy products, and celebrity culture that posits Lupita, I can't pronounce her last name, Nyong'o's as an exotic exception to the rule. But the program hits a nerve when it explores the deep-rooted internal and ideological causes of the problem. Singapore was ruled by English people who were white. My husband's getting sick. And therefore, to be lighter skinned was to ally yourself with those in power, says Sing Sing from Singapore. The assumption that to be fair is to be beautiful is never questioned. Singer Jamelia takes it back to the Willie Lynch theory that slave owners decided if a slave would work in or outside the house depending on their skin tone. That way you create segregation within the slaves themselves. It's still working now. It's used against your own, and it's so stupid, she says. The prevalence of shade prejudice in the dance hall culture is also discussed, though we hear disappointingly little from the Nigeria-Cameroonian pop star Densia, who launched her own skin lightening product called Whitenicious and compares herself to Jesus. Indeed, instead of an investigation into the inspirational elements of this ideology, we get inevitable musical choices to fill the gaps. India, Ari, Beyonce's, Pretty Hurts, TLC's, Unpretty, plus an occasional too flippant host. After one interview, he tells us, "I had Indian friends who were told they looked dirty because they came from South India." Amfo exclaims, "Where's the love?" before playing Where's the Love by Black Eyed Peas. The Guardian U.S. editor John Mulholland urges you to show your support for the independent journalism with a gift to the Guardian. Well, this went exactly where I didn't want it to go. So, there was one, and then here's another one. And this one is from Daily Life. Why the obsession with lighter skin? Densia, and I know I'm saying it wrong, guys. I know. It's Dencia, is a Nigerian pop star who is becoming better known for her skin cream, Whitenicious. I don't know. The product sold out within 24 hours of its release. The singer has been criticized both for promoting the dangerous practice of skin bleaching, and for her appearance in the accompanying advertisement, where she appears to have either been photoshopped white or undergone radical skin bleaching or both. The popularity of whitenicious is not surprising given that 77% of Nigerian women and many men use some form of lightening product. Sadly, Nigeria is not alone in its increasing intolerance toward darker skin tones. Skin lightening potions are remarkably popular in India, where nearly 61% of the all skincare products contain lightening agents, the Caribbean, China, Latin America, and amongst African Americans. Here's a beautiful picture of Lupita Nyong'o as she appeared on the cover of Vanity Fair. She's beautiful. So what is driving this obsession with lighter skin? In a word, colorism. Coined by writer Alice Walker, colorism refers to discrimination within communities of color towards those with darker skin. The preference for white skin is so firmly entrenched, 2/3 of Nigerian men saying they would prefer a lighter-skinned wife. According to African-American author Iyanla Van Zandt, and Van is Dutch, but that's a beautiful name. The roots of colorism can be traced back to slavery, as black female slaves were bred with their white owners. Their children became successively lighter-skinned and received preferential treatment. Darker-skinned slaves toiled in the fields, as their lighter counterparts were permitted indoors to service the mistresses of the house. Similar stories occurred in India during colonization when fairer Indians, who more closely resembled their European colonizers, were favored over their darker counterparts. Fair skin became associated with wealth, power, and status. Oh, not anymore. Well, not for me anyway. And status, and darker skin with poverty, backwardness, and field work. It is vital to recognize these origins of colorism in any discussion of it. Van Zandt called colorism a consequence of internalization of white-dominated society's entrenched white racial preference. In the Caribbean, the minority light-skinned community forms the majority of the ruling elite. In the Caribbean, really? An island? This is according to Caribbean-born writer Elizabeth Peers. The effects of generations of wealth and privilege in marrying the right people from the right and light families. Yikes. In India, famed commercial director Prahlad Kakar admits that fair people are routinely cast over darker-skinned rivals. I often fight with clients if I think one dark-skinned actor is a better performer, but clients are very open about not wanting to take what is seen as a risk. Dark skin is also seen as a risk in the West, as the magazine industry's attitude to black skin attests. Most recently, Vanity Fair has come under fire for apparently lightening the skin of 12-year slave star Lupita Nyong'o by several shades. Some claim it's just a trick of lighting, but regardless, the effect remains the same. Other stars who appear who have been subjected to the lightening treatment includes Gabby Sidibe and even Beyoncé, who would already pass the notorious paper bag test. Paper bag test? Paper bag test. In the early 1900s to the 1950s, African Americans who had by now internalized white society's preference for lighter skin held paper bag parties, pinning a brown paper bag to the front door. Anyone whose skin was darker than the bag was denied entry. This test was even used to determine admission to historically black universities and colleges. The implication is clear. The closer to white you are, the more intelligent, the more beautiful, the more acceptable. The internalization of the preference for whiteness was highlighted in the famous Clark doll experiments of the 1940s, in which dark-skinned African-American children were presented with two dolls and asked to choose which dolls were prettier and smarter, and which doll was bad. Overwhelmingly, the kids chose the white doll in the first two categories and the black doll in the last. When asked why this doll was bad, they responded, because she is black. My daughter has a little black doll. It's because it's cute. This experiment was the inspiration for Dark Girls, a 2010 documentary exploring the effects of colorism on African American women. Heartbreaking testimonials include a woman's pain when a pregnant friend quips, "Lord, I hope she doesn't come out dark," and a child admitting she doesn't like to be called black. In the Arab world, from where my family hails, the discrimination is not as historically entrenched, but there is no doubt that a shara, or fair, lighter-haired, and preferably color-eyed woman is considered more beautiful than an olive or brown-skinned samra. My own fair-skinned mother frequently implores me not to spend time in the sun should my olive skin get darker. Melinda Morales, now a yoga teacher in Florida, tells me a similar story amongst Hispanic farmhands in America. Very true. There is an incredible amount of shame about being a migrant farm worker. My mom didn't want us getting prieta, dark-colored or tanned. We would wear a long-sleeve shirt with long-sleeve dress shirt over that, heavy blue jeans, gloves, a large hat, and sunglasses, and the temperature would be in the hundreds. When my Linda got married to a keen water skier and joined him on boating trips, her mother would get so upset. Every time I would visit her, she would make an awful face and say I look so dark. My mom does that too. My mom doesn't like us getting dark. Whatever. I don't like being this color. But if I try to tan or get dark, sometimes I'll burn really bad. And sometimes I'll get dark, but it takes a while. So, it just depends on what I'm doing or what medicines I'm on. And where does white society fit into all this? Consider this study that found white people misremember intelligent black men as being lighter skinned than they actually are. There remains an underlying assumption that the lighter your skin, the more intelligent and less threatening you are. Wow, well, most serial killers are white, so we can't think that. That's just a fact. This undeniable bias toward lighter skin has also left some lighter skinned members of a community on the receiving end of discrimination for presumed favoritism. One SBS Insight episode examined how some Indigenous Australians are forced to prove their aboriginality. Likewise, light-skinned African Americans on a recent Oprah special claim they suffer the usual racist insults aimed at blacks, as well as taunts such as "light bright" from darker blacks. But we're still black in America, one woman implored. None of us feel advantaged. I have written dozens of columns on issues from sexual assault to domestic violence to terrorism. Many of them have made me angry. Others have left me in tears, but none have broken my heart more than this. That colorism exists drives home the magnitude of what those of us fighting for social justice are really up against. Colorism is oppression within oppression within oppression. The internalization of white as the beauty ideal, as the most intelligent and desirable form of humanity, has led to communities which many outsiders would presume are united, facing their own battles with discrimination and alienation in a bid to access the few privileges white society is willing to grant them. It's difficult not to think that the specter of slavery and colonization will always haunt us, especially when so many people still refuse to acknowledge the ways in which the past informed the present. Ayanla Van Zant reminds us of that. The first step to solving any problem is to admit there is a problem. Until we face this problem, then dangerous products like whitenicious will only continue to flood the market. One person put, "For balance, would you not have a discussion here on white people and the ongoing obsession with being tanned? Surely there's an argument that we're all trying to meet in the middle." It is very true. Why is everybody trying to get tan? Why is everybody making so much money off self-tanners or those tanning beds? They're dangerous as heck, but it's true. What do you guys think about that? That's pretty darn sad. So let's get back to Nick and Vlad. We'll talk more about this, but we had to have a little. It's not just in the black community as a collective. It's all different countries. But it seems like, and I've heard that lighter-skinned African Americans, they get a lot of shit.
let me start putting some of these numbers together, because he's like 74 years old, right? I'm like, you were like 12 when Emmitt Till happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you have, did you have living relatives who were slaves? He goes, my great-grandparents were slaves.
Wow. We have to stop again. If you guys don't know who Emmitt Till is was a little 14-year-old boy that, he was from Chicago, I believe, and he went to go visit his family down in Mississippi. I can't remember the exact years. I know somebody will in the comments, but it was a time when real racism was really bad, and the mom really didn't want him to go, but he wanted to visit his cousins. So to make a long story short, little Emmitt made that journey to Mississippi, was hanging out in front of a store and with his cousins or his friends or both, and a white lady had passed in front of them and went into the store, and when she came back out, she had went home, and she waited till her husband came home, and she said, I was assaulted, this black kid touched me and made some lewd comments and whistled. And so the husband got his brother-in-law, and I could be wrong about these facts. I know you guys will help me, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page how atrocious this is. I don't want anybody to be in the dark, because Emmitt Till is a really important name. So I think it was at night, Emmitt Till was woken up by his uncle, who was pleading for the woman's husband and brother-in-law not to take their nephew. He was pleading not to take his nephew. They took him anyway. I don't know how much I'm going to get through this, because I don't like to talk about abuse very much. But let's just say that they beat him so severely in the car. They beat him out of the car. I think they beat him so severely behind a shed before he was finally killed. I'm not sure if it was his final resting place was in the river, or if they tried to hide the body in the river. It's kind of murky in those details, only because my mind won't let me remember things like that. Let's just say that if you guys want to read on it, look up Emmitt Till, T-I-L-L, first name E-M-M-I-T-T, and they'll give you the explicit information on Emmitt. His mother had received the body back, and it was so disfigured that they could only identify him by the ring that he wore on his hand. And his mom, being a brave woman, she left the casket open for all to see what they had done to her son. There was a trial, and of course that trial said that these men were not guilty. And come to find out, not too long later, that woman recanted her story and said that Emmitt didn't do anything to her. I think it was on her deathbed. So that just yeah, that just goes to show you just one more disgusting thing that happens that should not have ever happened. You know, a woman lost her son for nothing, and these men get away with it. And why? So I don't want to get on my soapbox, even though I can. I'm really being good. Okay. So back to Nick.
He hated white people.
Right.
Hated them. Until he got to school and he had some experiences with some white teachers. Right. That made him rethink everything.
Yeah, and I mean, that happens in our community, man. Like, obviously, there's reason for even going that far back. But
did you ever hate white people?
I definitely despise that entire community as a whole. And it's funny, in one of my stand-up bits, I always say, when I talk about white people, I'm not talking about y'all. Y'all my friends. But I was like, when I talk about white, I'm talking about the idea, the establishment of white. James Baldwin said it the best. James Baldwin says, white is just the example and the synonym for elitist society. And I kind of made an acronym out of it. I was like, white is when having inheritance to everything. It's just that idea of, I'm more powerful than you. I control you. I hate, to this day, I hate that establishment. I hate that establishment of that hierarchy, this idea of this caste system that my community was brought into involuntarily, and then pressured to succeed. And if you don't, we're gonna lock you back in the cage. That's still our system today. So when I have no hate for any individual on this planet, but there are certain systems that I just despise that are set up because they're set up in a hateful way. So that's what I was gonna say. Growing up, man, like, not only are you taught to dislike, but you are taught to fear them in a way. You're taught to be like that idea. I mean, growing up in the South, growing up in North Carolina, South Carolina, they tell you, don't look a white person in the eye. You know what I mean? You walking on the street, you gotta,
No, he actually talked about it. He said that his parents,
when they were going to church on a Sunday, say it was raining, and say they were on the sidewalk. If a white family came their direction, in the opposite direction, they had to step into the mud and bow their heads until the white family passed, then get back on the sidewalk and walk to church. And every time a white family passed toward them, they had to step into the mud and bow their heads.
Man, I was in coming up.
That's his parents. That's not a book.
Okay, so in lieu of making this video already as long as it is, if you guys want to see the rest of the interview, Nick says that he still, even in his younger days, received a lot of that. He even was taught not to look in the eyes and this kind of a thing. And there was lots of comments like, what part were you from? Because that's not what we were taught. There was a lot of good debates in the comments section. And I actually asked a lot of them to please come to my channel just so we could talk about these things. And the only good thing I can say is, instead of getting mad at me for being there, they just completely left me alone. My little comments there just floating around in Vlad TV land. So anyway, you guys, I'm sorry I took up so much of your time, but I just wanted us to all learn something together. And for those of you who already knew about this, write down how you feel, or if you've ever been a victim of colorism. I can say that I have, but in a way that's, oh, you're just white, you're just a white girl. I'm like, I'm Hispanic. So it's just one of those things, and they have no idea my health issues. So we just can't judge. We just should never judge. And I'm just hoping that by making these videos, maybe one day it will click in somebody that really needs to hear that. All right. Love you guys. See you guys soon. I really do. Love you guys. I look forward to seeing your little comments every time.